want to thank you guys very much for being here today. We do have to go ahead and get out of here. We've actually been on for 2 hours now. Appreciate you tremendously, though. It's been a great episode. Might have a live room tonight. Probably not, especially if there's already one on somebody else's channel. So nonetheless, God bless you guys. I appreciate you very much. Remember to do all things to the glory of God, and if the Lord tarries and wills, we will be with you soon.
Hello.
Hey, Bob. What's up, man?
Good to see you. Nothing. How are you?
Good. Were you watching the show over there on...
Hello.
Hey, Bob.
Hold on. Sorry.
How are you?
Sorry about that. Forgot about that tab. Sorry. Could you repeat that, please, Jamie?
Yeah. Did you... so we're live, just so you know. We're... I have it posted on YouTube, I hope. Whereas I was just watching the synagogue, CJ's channel.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, would you what did you think about that? I'd like to hear what you think.
Well, I only caught the last 10 minutes or so.
Oh, okay.
Physicalism and what was it? I didn't quite understand the point of discussing whether numbers exist and things like that. So
the position is the same. I share the position that Chris shares with Christian physicalism. It's commonly associated with soul sleep because it's the nature of the anthropology of humans. So it's not metaphysical physicalism. It is. Sorry, I got people in the house here.
It's okay. I'm not sure what the point. I don't think I'm going to study that subject particularly. I'm not sure what application it has to biblical understanding, teaching, and whatever.
Yeah, it's yeah. I mean, you could say that about anything almost, right? I mean, why does it matter? Well, the question is, what does the Bible say? I guess.
Yeah. I was watching a stream this afternoon with that lady that was in there.
Why does it matter?
Niche.
The question is, what
Niche.
Street Timberwolf.
2, 3.
You got the YouTube going on in the background. I think maybe you could turn that off so I can unmute you and see what you're doing. What was that, Bob?
I was watching that stream this afternoon that Smokey did. Linda was in there giving people grief again.
Oh yeah, I was in there, obviously, right? That was, yeah. I couldn't understand what Linda was saying. She was.
I don't think she does.
Agreeing with me. I don't know if she's what that was about, because I don't know what to think.
Yeah.
I came in and brought up some things she said, not to be disparaging, but to try to talk to the point of people's differences. And in other words, I was pointing out what seems like inconsistency on the channel owner's part, as far as what he says is a very serious matter, yet he affirms many people that seem to disagree with his perspective. So I was just pointing out that certain people that he seems to respect go against his views that he finds he speaks that are very important or whatever. So I just wanted to hear what he had to say. I don't make such a big deal out of it. As he would. So
yeah. So I've seen Arctic Timberwolf about.
I don't make such a big deal. Can you shut off your YouTube so we can talk?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. You just had background noise.
Arctic Timberwolf about.
I can hear you, but there's something playing in your background. Yeah, I can hear you. You said that. You gotta turn off your YouTube window.
What do I have to do?
Cut off the YouTube playing in the background because it's like lagging, and then playing what we say like a few seconds later. Because
Gotcha.
did you were you watching the
Is that better?
Yeah, there you go. Yep.
Okay.
I just usually mute my mic in between when I'm talking, just to keep it from being overly busy sounding or whatever. But no worries. Were you in the synagogue, watching the synagogue at all before this?
I don't know what you mean by synagogue.
Oh, okay. I just wondered how you found the channel.
Oh, I was over there on the YouTube live chat.
Okay. What were you watching?
Yeah, let me see here. It was the synagogue on the synagogue YouTube channel. Your live chat.
Okay, yeah, and so you saw the stream here thing. What's
and then I seen you posted a link to your channel, and then went over there and you posted another link there in that live chat. And I clicked on that and it came over here to StreamYard.
Did you catch much of that broadcast there?
About the last 45 minutes of it.
Okay. What's your position then?
Well,
Your opinion of what Chris was saying, I guess. Do you have anything you want to add or say about that?
I don't know. I think it's good that you guys are all discussing all these things, and I definitely am of the opinion that, it's hard to compare things supernatural to things natural, and to compare things spiritual with things physical, like electricity or, um, film projectors, things like that. I find it amusing on one hand and confusing on the other. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it can be confusing because, of course, CJ doesn't have. He's a dualist, which would be the common traditional view that most Christians hold. I hold the position that Chris does, which is kind of a monism, which means there's a single substance that makes up man. But you have to understand too that it's not a denial of a spiritual realm or angels or anything like that. It's strictly dealing with mankind, right? So the nature of human beings and what the Bible has to say, in my opinion, anyways, what the Bible has to say. Philosophy comes into play, obviously, but hence the physicalism thing. But I share that position. And Bob was asking, a lot of people will say this too. Why does it really matter? And I mean, ultimately, you could say it doesn't matter, I guess, but truth matters, I suppose. And I like to make a case for it. I think it affects other doctrine. And I think it also, overall, it affects, okay, let's say the Bible, it is confusing, but at the same time, if you let the Bible speak, it kind of clarifies and it doesn't make it seem so unclear, let's say. So it kind of relates to perspicuity, I guess, for me, because I think a lot of reasons people disagree on so many doctrines is because it's kind of, they make the text be ambiguous or they have to import ideas like Greek philosophy into the nature of man to get dualism. And I would say the Bible doesn't know anything about it. And so when you're saying, well, the Bible's missing all these facts, but we can fill them in through Greek philosophy, I'm not saying Greek philosophy doesn't help. I'm a classical theist, but I think you have to then be apologist for all these verses and try to explain them away, why they don't mean what they say. And so that messes up the clarity of what Scripture is speaking to anyway.
Well, I think people sometimes have a tendency to add to what is written in the Bible, depending on their own opinions of what they think the meaning of it is. Like, for example, you're mind, body, and spirit all in one right here on earth. And God has clarified that by saying that you're to worship God with all your mind and all your might and all your soul. And things like this are written throughout the Bible. And I feel like what's written in Scripture is very clear, and obvious in most cases,
Yeah, so you're saying because of language like love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your mind, that would indicate that you have a soul, let's say.
Well, you are those three things.
Yeah, in a sense, I don't disagree with that. I tend to think soul means very. In most cases, you could say there's all sorts of connections etymologically or whatever, for its definition. But I would say the best definition for what's translated as soul in English, nefesh, it would be life, alive. But so when it says love the Lord your God with all your soul, it's like saying with all your being, like your whole being, you have to give it everything, right?
Absolutely.
So I think it's really easy to then. Hi, Danny.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Hi, Danny.
I think it's I can see where it's easy to assume that that's making dualism the case, but I don't think that's what it's saying, let's say. But there is a sense where I could say, because the Bible does talk about how you have a soul, but I think it's just talking about you have life, like you have your life. You know what I mean? So a lot of times you can read lots of verses, like in Isaiah 53, 10 and 11. It's in the King James. It's translated, speaking of the Messiah, right? In Isaiah 53, considering you're a Christian, right? It talks about what we think is Jesus, and it says, he talks about his soul, let's say, in verse 10 and 11. I could pull it up here. But I think it's better understood, could be better understood to just mean his life. So,
Right there, Dan, how are you? Is that Dan from Phil Talk, is it?
yes.
Yes.
Hey, Danny, any thoughts on the live stream?
Oh, I enjoyed the parts that I listened to. I was wondering how he responded to my questions, though. I didn't get to listen to that.
Yeah, I don't know that I didn't. I missed part of that too. If he did answer, I'm not sure he did, because you were asking. So, what would you say? I think he's a non-reductive physicalist, right?
Yeah, he's non-reductive. It seems like. Yeah, I think that was affirmed.
What does that mean, non-reductive?
One question I guess I wanted him. I was curious about was what he thought that if it were the case that God believed X and I believed X, what's the common property of our mentality such that we can say that in fact we have a similar attitude or the same attitude towards that proposition? And the thing is that if our belief is just reducible or identical to a brain state, and God's is not, then if there's like an emergence relation. Emergence relations are typically understood as being necessary, right? That the idea is that if X emerges, or if Y emerges from X, then there's some kind of necessity relation between X and Y. That doesn't exist for God, right? So then in virtue of what can we appeal to that we actually have the same attitude, or whether that we are talking about the same thing when we say God and I agree or God and I have similar beliefs?
So you're trying to sneak in some kind of dualism in the back door. Well, okay, if you're a non-reductive physicalist, but I mean, he is in one sense, but he always emphasizes that it's not metaphysical physicalism, right? What's the difference?
Well, I think metaphysical naturalism, or as he says it, metaphysical dualism or physicalism, that talks about the world as a whole. And then the only sense of dualism and physicalism that he's talking about is one that relates to mind.
Right.
So but I think that's not the concern for me. Here's what I'm saying, right? Like, suppose I think that I think there's this thing. Well, let's just say, when we say that there are two things that are the same thing, right? We are saying that there's like this kind of type of thing whose properties apply to two different things. So like if I say that I'm holding a spoon in my hand and you're holding a spoon in your hand, right? There are common properties between what we're holding in our hands such that I'm licensed to say that we're holding the same thing, right? We're both holding a thing that doesn't have spikes, right? That has a kind of oval bowl shape, that has a handle, right? And it's in virtue of that, do we actually we're able to claim that we are holding the same thing, right? So then God has an attitude. What?
Would you say the thing that commonly relates them is their essence, or is that substance, or their
Well, you don't need to get that deep. There's some people that construe it that way, but I don't personally think you need to get that deep.
Okay.
Because you can accept or reject anything I'm saying and adopt substance theory or essences, or not do so.
Well, here, can I break in here for a second, guys? Like, I think what you're trying to get at here, Danny, is like, we would both look at our pet dog, for example, and, one of us might have a Doberman Pinscher, another one might have a Chihuahua, another might have a wolf or a husky, but yet we might all still refer to those as a pet dog, as that one type of...
Yeah, so the idea is that there's this type dog, and there's an extension of things that fit that type. And in the same way that there's this thing called type of belief, but he's saying that belief for humans is different from God belief. So then what is, because human belief is just somehow related or even or necessitated by brain states, but God belief isn't, right? So then what is then the common property between God belief and human belief, I guess, is what I'm trying to ask.
Well, I would say belief is more of a faith in something unknown, and that God, since He is all knowing, you know, I'm not sure how I can explain this. You know, belief is different than knowing. So, which trumps which? Is belief a higher order
Knowledge is a subset of belief.
thought function?
Knowledge is a subset of belief, but
I would disagree. Knowledge, I would say, is not a subset of belief.
Well, it's like a prerequisite, right? I mean, you have to you can have it gets into what is a justified true belief. Danny, if you want to help him with there,
yeah, I mean, I'm just saying that the typical formulation of knowledge is that it's justified true belief. So that means that knowledge is a kind of belief. Now, if knowledge is a kind of belief, that establishes that it's a subset of belief.
Because you can't know anything unless you believe it first,
right? Mm-hmm. It's just like, Chihuahua is a subset of dog or kind of dog, right?
Right. It's not that it necessarily trumps it, other than in the sense that it's a, belief.
It's added properties,
It's a necessary.
A false belief is a subset of belief,
yeah,
kind of belief, yeah.
Right, because you can believe something that's false, and so knowledge is assumed to mean
you believe something that's true, plus you have a good reason for it.
Right. And that's
exactly. I mean, knowledge comes with evidence.
Yeah, like a good reason or something. Yeah.
Well, a way to prove it.
Those are strong words.
Proof is kind of a tricky thing.
Well, in word and indeed.
Yeah, so I'm not clear on what you mean, Danny. Like, are you trying to you're speaking about?
It's sort of my fault. So let me. The spoon example was probably a really poor example. So let me think of it this way: do you have a dog or whatever, a pet? Have you ever had a pet?
I have a cat.
Okay, so you have a cat. Do you think your cat can experience pain? Do you think it can have pain?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the idea that when you have pain, when you say I have pain, and then when you attribute pain to your cat, you're attributing one kind of thing in two different instances, right? And the problem there is that y'all have two very different brain structures. Okay, so this is called multiple realizability. The idea is that when we attribute pain to a thing, that thing or a agent or being, a subject, that thing could have a radically different physiology. In fact, it might not even necessarily be biological, right? So it'd be weird to say that pain in one being is identical to this kind of physiology, but then attribute the same kind of thing, that pain, to a being that does not have that physiology.
Yeah. So,
okay. So that means that what you're attributing to your cat when your cat is in pain is something over and above the physiology, because y'all don't have the same physiology.
Right. It's and you could make the case with something that was even less similar, that was non-biological.
Yeah, like in Pinocchio, everyone thinks that Pinocchio, or in these fictional stories, like the Wall-E from the Pixar film, right? that they were in pain at some point. Okay, but Wall-E is made entirely of metal. Pinocchio was made entirely of wood. You're made entirely of cells or whatever, right? So how is it that you can establish an identity relation between, let's say, something like pain or belief to your physiology, and then attribute the same thing to a being that does not have that physiology, right?
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying? So then the same thing applies to God. God doesn't have a brain, but it's perfectly sensical to attribute propositional attitudes, aka belief.
I
Right?
disagree 100% about that, Danny.
Well, I said a lot, so I don't really know what.
Well, when you say God doesn't have a brain, I mean, that's, come on now. I mean, Christ came down here to earth and he walked around and talked with people and stuff, and I'm pretty sure he had a brain and a tongue and vocal
Do you think the
cords.
Father has a brain?
Absolutely, because he spoke with Abraham and Adam and all the prophets of the Old Testament.
The Father?
Yep. All right. Here's one. At the baptism of Christ, there was a voice heard.
Yeah. But the
Okay.
But that implies a brain.
In order to have a voice, you got to have physical vocal cords. You got to have mouth. You got to have tongue.
Why is that true?
Well, how are you going to make sound without vocal cords, without a voice, without?
Well, that's just an argument from ignorance. That's just an argument from ignorance. Just because you don't know how you can make sound without vocal cords and brains and bodies doesn't follow that. Therefore, you can't.
Well, either way, it takes a brain to do it.
Well, God spoke.
Well, that's the assertion, right? But I'm asking, why would you think that?
Because it's the truth. It's just.
Well, now you're begging the question.
It's obvious.
It's
Well,
obvious.
Wait a second. You don't you believe that God spoke the universe into existence? He would.
I absolutely do.
We're not. Danny's not necessarily denying that God has a mind. He's just saying it's not physical, right?
Yeah, I don't think that when God spoke into existence, that he had like a brain to do it. Otherwise, the brain would be part of the universe, right?
Classically, most people would say God is a disembodied mind, right? And then Jesus was incarnated into a physical form, and most Christians affirm that yes, Jesus has a physical form now forever after becoming a man to execute redemption. But I think, this is kind of the thing we're probing at here is like, well, if man is dependent on a brain for the attributes of a mind, you still can't totally you can't just totally separate that from the heavenly realm of creatures that are non-physical, let's say, and have minds. If we're going to relate to them in the ways Danny's suggesting, I think that's kind of what you're getting at, isn't it?
Yeah, like I guess one last example is that if I know that Superman is Clark Kent, right? That there's a relation there, right? And some kind of identity relation, and I point out a case where there's Superman, but I don't think that Clark Kent is that person. I contradict myself, right? Because if I'm starting with the belief that there's a strong that Superman or Clark Kent necessitates Superman, okay, and then I think that there's an instance of Superman but no Clark Kent, there's a problem, okay. In the same way that if you think that human belief is somehow identical or necessitated by brain states, okay, and then you point out to there's or let's say belief, right, and then you point out and say, well, there's a belief over there, but I don't think that necessitates any physiological states, right? Then your concept of belief is not actually tied to physiological states at all.
Right. So it's kind of like, what if you appealed to some sort of ultimate dependency on let's say because I think the real crux of Christian physicalism is like it's scriptural, right? And then you borrow from philosophy. So the question is like, and ultimately, can you separate anthropological physicalism from what you're talking about? I think.
Yeah, what you're saying is like, look, okay, Danny, there's human belief and there's God belief, and they're different, right? Human belief is necessitated by the physical. God belief isn't. Okay, then I want to ask, then what is the common property
What links
between human belief? What?
What if I said information? What if I said process and information? Does that make me? Am I then? Do I have to give up my position if I say ultimately man's the qualia of experience or whatever is non-physical? I mean,
I think that. See, I'm a little confused here because Danny, you keep saying God belief, and I kind of don't understand that because God is all-knowing, and He knows what He has done, what He's going to do, and everything in between.
Yeah, I don't want to dispute that.
And, you know, for, like, what exactly do you mean by, like, what He believes? Like, believes in what? Like, does He believe in, you know, this or that? Like, I'm not sure specifically what you're talking about because God knows everything.
Yeah, I'm not gonna. I think this goes back to our previous disagreement that knowledge is a subset of belief. So I'm fine with using the word knowledge if that really. I don't think anything turns on it. The point is that there's human knowledge and there's God knowledge. So God knows that it's raining outside. I know that it's raining outside, but my knowledge is necessitated by my physiological states. God's knowledge state is not. So what is the common property if it's the case that there is some kind of necessitated relation between my physiological state and knowledge, but there isn't such a necessitated state between God or when it comes to God's knowledge? I think that's my problem.
Danny's a philosopher, and he's very much trying to stay on topic here. Timberwolf. He's talking about the nature of beliefs and the difference between God and humankind, and he's posing it from the idea that man's mind dependent on the physical brain, because we're talking about physicalism. So it's not so much about what God knows or anything. It's more about the
Well, I can say a couple things on that. I have is man dependent on their physical brain? I would say no.
I would say no too, but the physicalist thinks otherwise.
Okay, well, I have two friends that have gotten shot in the head, and they're missing parts of their brains, and it hasn't changed them at all.
Yeah, but the thing is that I don't to be charitable to the physicalists, they're not saying they're saying that there's a state of the brain which necessitates the belief or knowledge or personality or whatever. And if your friend was shot in the head, it just didn't violate that state. That's
what would you say about this? That God knows the thoughts of the hearts of men.
Yeah, there's nothing. I don't see that as being a problem in the conversation.
Okay, well, because in Scripture that's saying that the heart thinks. There's a difference between what your mind thinks and what your heart thinks.
I think that's leftover Aristotelian thinking, where Aristotle thought that the thinking unit was the heart and not the brain. And the idea there is that the center of emotions is also the heart. So
okay, all right, Danny. Then what would I say to you if we were in some sort of situation and you just got a gut feeling about it, and that half of your neurons are located in your gut?
I just take gut feeling to be about an intuition. I don't think my view is that in mental states or intuitions don't really have localities like physical objects. So it doesn't really make sense to say that my intuition is in my stomach or anything like that.
Okay. Have you ever read anything about Ernst Mach?
No.
The scientist who's attributed for, Mach speed and breaking the sound barrier and all these things?
I don't know anything about him. I only know the term Mach speed.
He said, and I agree with him, that you should trust your senses. Like, God gave you the sense of sight and smell and hearing and touch. And
Yeah,
God
I don't want
gave
to
you
dispute
that.
any of that. I mean, I think I'm talking about something different.
Oh, okay, then. All right, then what is your question?
My original problem is that if some physiological state necessitates, and remember, a necessity relation is a really strong relation, right? That could be an identity relation or something like that. But the idea is that if a physiological state necessitates a belief state in the same way that, or if a belief state necessitates a physiological state, but then in the same world we're attributing belief states to things that don't have physiological states, I think there's an inconsistency.
Between that, like, is that anamorphic, giving inanimate cartoons emotions and things is what you mean, right?
Well, that's one example, but that's just to kind of get you thinking. But we actually do it. The things that, like the Christians and theists want to say that God does have belief states, but those belief states are not instantiated or not necessitated by any kind of physiological state. So then the thing is that, okay, so the difference is that human belief is instantiated by the physical, a God belief is not. So then what is the common property then between my attitude and God's attitude?
That's a
good
deep
question, Danny.
What kind of things are? Sorry, I got a vacuum going here.
That's fine.
What kind of things determine God, what God thinks? I mean, that's a crazy question.
No, it's actually a more simple question. So then I think maybe I'm being misunderstood. It could be totally my fault. But like the idea is that if someone were to tell me God believes or has an attitude of X, right? What that means to me is that that attitude is a sort of aim or holding of something to be true, right? That's what an attitude is, at least propositional attitudes like beliefs. And so now that's all I take a belief to be. And now if that's non-physical, right, given that it's coming from God, right? And if that is also true of my belief, then there's an inconsistency, because then that attitude is not actually that's not the part of human belief that is necessitated by the physical.
Yeah, that's. I think that's a good question. I'm not. I have no potential answer. I don't think. I'll have to think about it. Because although I think the brain or the mind is dependent on the brain with humans, there's a sense I would say the mind is, qualia or a state of belief isn't exactly, I don't know, physical, I guess. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing what you're saying. I'm sorry if I am.
No, it's not, it's kind of a weird argument, but I'm just like, I'm just saying that. Okay, basically, what I'm trying to point out is that when you think about terms, so think about belief, God belief, and human belief, that is either going to be univocal, meaning that it's in the exact same sense, right? They mean the same thing, but that can't be true, because human belief and God belief are differentiated according to someone like Chris Day, right? So it's not univocal. Okay, so then it could be equivocal, meaning that they can mean something totally different. But that doesn't seem true either, right? That we seem to be saying something, there's something in common when we say God believes that it's raining outside and I believe that it's raining outside. Okay? Right. So it's not equivocal, we're not equivocating. So then the last option is that they're analogous, right? But if they're analogous, then there's a common property between God belief and human belief, right? Or God attitude and human attitude. And I'm saying that I couldn't imagine what would be analogous there, because whatever remember, whatever property you're seeing is analogous between God attitude and human attitude, then that establishes that that property is namely non-physical, given that God has that common property.
Indeed. Yeah, I don't know. That's you have any proposals for that?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with I mean, that I've been using the word necessitated. I think that a dependency relation, like I would have to ask someone like Chris Tate what he means here, because the non-reductive physicalist might have a couple tricks up their sleeve. I don't think the identity theorist has any tricks up their sleeve. But I think that my personal view is every time I talk to non-reductive physicalists, it just seems like sophistry. Like they agree with you that they can't be identified, right? That my belief is not identical or reduced to my brain state, but they want to retain their label as physicalist. So then they point to other sorts of relations, right? It can't be a causal relation between belief and brain state because that's compatible with dualism. So then they try to go with this like in-between relation, which is like this supervenience relation or emergent relation. And I struggle to know what they mean there. And typically what they mean is that there's a necessary relation, but not of identity. And I don't know what the heck that means, right? And they would have to kind of flesh that out. But maybe if they flesh that out, they might have an answer to my question.
I'm following you on a really, but I mean,
sorry, you're following on what?
You
I'm following you very.
words, Danny. I don't know. I think God has written the Bible in simplicity for people to understand it. And I think things are very simple.
You think God's very simple?
I think things are very simple.
It's like we're talking about God's intentional states, his intentionality in our minds. I don't think that's going to be simple.
I do.
You think God's mind is simple?
Well, he wrote the Bible in a very, very simplistic 8th grade educational level so that, everybody has the opportunity to understand exactly what he thinks and what his opinion is.
I'm probably not a good person to talk about. Oh, we lost Jamie.
Yeah, I just noticed that. No, I'm just saying, like you use a lot of big philosophy words and stuff that I'll be honest, I haven't heard in a lot of years. I'm quite a few years separated from my days in college and stuff, and I don't know. I think that we can narrow this down to a very simple solution, And I think that's one of Ernst Mach's, one of the points he was making when, he said basically you can trust your senses, like what you see. Like if you see the clouds up in the sky, you can tell whether or not it's going to rain. And, you can feel the raindrops on you and you know that it's raining. You believe it, you know it, because you feel it.
Maybe, yeah. I'm not a theist, so I'm not really concerned about interpretation and biblical text. I'm willing to grant whatever interpretation you want. I think Jamie lost power, lost connection, so he's trying to come back.
Charge up his phone for a couple minutes or something.
He had a storm come through. It seems to be a common trope with Jamie.
Well, I'm more than happy to talk with you and answer any of the questions you got, Danny.
Well, I don't know if I have about this issue about physicalism.
Anything at all, man.
Oh, I don't really know if I have any.
Anything, man. I'm a person. You're a person. We're people.
Well, I'm not a Christian. I'm not a theist. So,
That don't matter. I talk to Christians and non-Christians.
Are you a Christian?
I don't like to label myself. I'll put it to you that way. Okay, sure,
Okay.
I grew up going to the church and everything. I do read the Bible and things like that, but I haven't gone to church in a lot of years, and there's a very good reason why I haven't, Danny.
Yeah. 1 second. Jamie's texting me.
Sure.
Yeah, he's trying to come back.
I'll tell you this about myself and everybody else too. Church and this organized religion, they're not the gatekeepers to God. And they're just trying to figure it out just like the rest of y'all are. I got friends all over the world, Buddhists, Hindus, they got all sorts of different beliefs and stuff. So I'm willing to talk to you about anything you can possibly think of.
Well,
I'm
interested
or
in
technology or anything else even too.
Well, I'm interested in philosophy. That's just usually what I talk about.
Philosophy. Are you going to college right now?
Well, I have my degree in philosophy, and I'm getting my master's.
Oh, okay. There you go. Are you in the United States?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'm in the South.
Oh yeah, I was born down south in Virginia.
Oh, I'm from Louisiana, so try a little bit further south.
Yeah. That's cool. So how'd you make out with the hurricane that just swept through?
It knocked out power for a few days, but I got lucky. A lot of people that lived around here lost power for like a week.
Yeah.
Thanks for asking.
Yeah. I had a friend down on the panhandle of Florida down there, and they didn't get hit so hard as you guys did in Louisiana.
Yeah, really, the city I'm in got grazed by it, but like New Orleans and Covington and Hammond, they got pummeled by the storm.
Okay.
Poor Jamie. I wonder one day he'll get a good connection. I'm just waiting on him to come back.
So, do you believe in the Big Bang Theory and evolution and that sort of thing?
I guess I just accept the local authority on all that stuff. I'm not really academically interested in any of that, except for maybe certain evolutionary ideas that I push back against.
I see. How do you explain all the pyramids and crop circles and weird sort of phenomena like that going on?
How do I explain it? I don't really try to explain it. I just don't know anything about it.
You just okay. Don't pay attention to that.
Yeah, I really don't. Sorry.
All right. Don't be sorry about it, man. This is like hacky sack, man. There ain't no sorry in hacky sack. What do you like to do for fun, Danny?
I do stuff like this mostly, and sometimes I play video games.
Okay. All right. That's good. Find things, hobbies and stuff to keep your mind occupied.
You seem like a nice guy. Sorry, I'm not that talkative. I usually just talk about philosophy.
That's all right, man. That's all right. So, who's your favorite philosopher through history?
Historically, I mean, it's hard to dislike Kant. Kant is very interesting to me.
Danny, did you want to add your screen, or is that somebody
Yeah,
else?
go ahead and add the screen. Now that you're back, I'll kind of go through the various views of mind. That might help you a lot if you want. Let me get back to my browser.
Yeah, please.
Okay, so
Oh, wow, I can watch
So-
this. Right.
first of all, there's so on the metaphysical level, you have basically monism versus dualism, and there are different versions of this, right? So monism, here you have physicalism, you have idealism, right? And then you have something called neutral monism, which I know very little about. And then here you're positing different categories of ontologies. Sorry, dualism. You're having, you distinguish between, physical, mental, whatever. But so you're looking between monism and dualism. Now, if you're looking at fill of mind stuff, right? You have physicalism, right? You have basically two kinds, right? You have reductive and non-reductive. Okay, reductive, people usually think of this as identity theory. So that's brain. Let's just say mental state is identical to
Is that
brain
the
state.
T jump that?
I don't know. I don't understand T jump half the time. I really don't. I mean, the guy is just okay. Anyways, probably, yeah. A lot of like internet YouTuber, like new atheisty, like just got into philosophy. A lot of them take reductive physicalism, but there are non-reductive physicalism is pretty popular, right? Here, the idea is that so there's no identity, no identity.
Danny, if I disappear, just keep going, and
Okay.
it's just I'm having a connection issue, but I'll be I can get on my phone, so I'm going to be watching, but I'll try to come back in.
Okay. No identity between mind and brain, but there is a different relation, and that's a relation that's kind of elusive to me, but a lot of people think of emergence or supervenience.
You
So-
mean the relation between the brain and the mind, right, Danny?
Yeah, sorry, yeah. It's a different relation between so supervenience is something like if there's a change in mental, there's a change in physical. That's something like that. Let me make this a little so let's just do supervenience second here, and then I'm going to make this a little bit more. There we go. Okay, so emergence, I don't know what they're talking about, but a lot of people think that many emergentists, many emergentists accept supervenience. Okay, maybe an example here could be something like water supervenes or emerges from H2O, not identical. Something like that. And these relations, right? These relations are supposed to be necessitated. So we're not talking about not mere causal relation. Okay, so that's like the That's the trick here. Oops. I wanted to highlight that or underline. I forgot. Let me see. I wonder if you can bold it, but I guess not. Okay. I'm going to capitalize it. That's dictated. Okay. But so that's physicalism. There's also a non-reductive thesis called there's, I'm going to put a space on this, weird kind of non-reductive physicalism. It's eliminativism. So the idea is that there's no identity relation, no relation because there is no mental in the folk psych sense. So no belief, no qualia, no pain, no desire. So that's physicalism in a nutshell. Okay. Yeah, Jamie's gone again. I'm gonna get something to drink. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Okay, my bad. I'm back.
That's okay. Gotta stay hydrated, man.
Yeah, I had to get something to drink. But anyways, so that's physicalism in a nutshell. I think Chris Dade is a non-reductive physicalist, but I think that there's just too much complication here. I don't really understand any of this. It doesn't really make very much sense to me. But this definitely doesn't. The limitativism makes no sense to me. Either. Obviously, there are no beliefs, no qualia on a strong form of limitativism. So that just can't be. That seems self-defeating. Then, in that sense, you couldn't actually believe that limitativism is true. But and then dualism. There's substance dualism. And this is full of mind. So here we're talking about, mind and body are two different substances. And then you have something called property dualism. Property dualism, basically, it's a little bit vague. But some property dualists will say that there are physical objects with non-physical properties.
Physical objects.
Okay, so brain might has mental properties, something like that, and then there's other kinds, but they're so fringe. There's something called epiphenom. Let's see, epiphenomenalism. I don't think that's how you spell it. I'm gonna get this right spelling for y'all because I don't want y'all to get the right. Maybe that's how you spell it. Maybe. Did I spell it right? Let's see.
I'm not sure if Notepad has a spell checker.
That's how you spell. Looks like I spelled it right. I just copy pasted. Okay, and then epiphenomenalism is the view that, and this might be compatible. I'll say might be compatible with physicalism. I think that's probably true, but the idea is that beliefs, desires, well, let's just say mental states. Mental states are caused, but never cause. So that's to say, they are causally inert. They're causally inert. They don't cause anything. Okay. Those are, I mean, there are probably other views, but those are the main views in philosophy of mind, probably, right now.
The cause would never cause. I disagree with that 100%.
Yeah, me too. I think something like Nietzsche took this view, like very Nietzschean. Nietzsche kind of analogized us to waves as like willing to, like you know, what do you call it, curl or something like that. But really, what's going on is that though that will is not really doing anything. I think Jamie's about to come back. But that's it. I'll wait for Jamie to come back.
Okay. What kind of video games you play, Danny? Oh, there's Jamie.
I mostly play card games or League of Legends. Oh, Jamie's back. Jamie, you there?
Yeah, I lost my power.
That's so crazy.
Yeah, what do you know? The first time I started a stream where I actually invite people in, it happens. And out of nowhere, too. It's nice today, but sorry, yeah.
Yeah, so did you, I don't know if you caught anything of what I was saying.
Yeah, I saw part of it at the beginning. I have trouble understanding definitions. I missed the, probably, let's see here.
supervenience. Why don't you tell me that one again?
So it's kind of vague. All of it, I was saying that all of this is kind of vague stuff to me. I don't really know what they're talking about, but I'll tell you what they say. Supervenience. So A supervenes on B means that if there's a change in A, then there'll be a change in B. So if I say that like water supervenes on H2O, if H2O changes, then water will change. Something like that.
Okay, so it's kind of like ecological, or is it like that seems. Why is that particularly non-reductive important to non-reductive physicalism?
Because the reductive physicalism is basically identity theory.
Yes, okay.
They're saying that it's identical.
Yes, okay.
Right, but with supervenience, they're not saying the word identical at the least. They're not even saying that they share all the properties. They're saying, hey, if one changes, the other one changes. But they're not talking about a causal relation either. Right? It's not a cause effect. It's something. So if you think of it like down here, I'll write, you have basically. Oops, nope.
What I kind of think of that as, Danny, is sort of like driving a car. If I change the position of my foot on the gas pedal, it changes the revolutions per minute of the engine, and the car goes faster.
Yeah, it seems like there's a causal relation there.
Right. Cause and effect.
Yeah,
Exactly.
but they don't want to say it's cause effect. It's something stronger than that, but weaker than identity, right? So this is like a kind of a strange relation for me, for Danny. I don't. Anytime they try to, because notice that supervenience, if there's a change in the mental, there's a change in the physical. That's all. That means that everything supervenes on itself too.
Yeah, that's kind of like describing what we don't know about. It's just like going on without understanding the heart, like the mind-body problem or whatever. It's almost like I'm probably just not thinking of it right, but it sounds like it's just a way of moving on without understanding the connection. I don't know.
Yeah. The idea is that a lot of these non-reductive people think that their problems with identifying them, and think that their problems is just saying there's cause effect. Because if they say if there's cause effect, guess what that's compatible with? That's compatible with dualism.
Yeah.
So here, strange relation for me, but really the important part of emergence that they want to say is that there's is that there's some kind of necessitation. There's necessity.
Without necessarily saying it's just
identical, right? Identity already is necessary, right?
Yeah.
Right, but this is like a different kind of necessity. Cause and effect, that's always usually non-necessary, right? A cause, only if there's like, you have to like basically to say that a cause or the effect necessarily comes from a particular cause, you have to have a law of nature, but by itself you can't, there's not any way to establish necessity there. But anyways, it's clever though. It's clever. It's sort of avoiding the problems of identity theory and avoiding dualism at the same time. It's clever. Anyways, and then go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, so then you have dualism, and there are basically two kinds of dualism that are in the literature right now. Substance dualism, mind and body are two different substances. And then property dualism, it's a little vague, but some of them will say that there are physical objects with non-physical properties. So the brain is a physical object, but it has non-physical mental properties to it.
I almost feel like I'm okay with that, but
yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, I struggle with this part of it because this is where from a theological point of view, it's like if you're gonna say that there's non-physical minds, it almost seems like you have to take this view. I mean,
Yeah, it's interesting because you could say that. Well, no, it's the mentality is understood in terms of brain. Brain is physical, but mentality, those properties of the brain are themselves non-physical. Now, I mean,
Yeah.
that's very hard to respond to if you don't know anything, if you don't have any background in philosophy. So you can just pretty much that pretty much kind of puts your whoever you're talking to into a more of a I don't know how to respond to you phase. But I think part of the problem is that physical objects. So an objection. I'll give you one of the main objections. There's an objection, right? To property dualism is that I know what a physical object is. Think of like ball, apple, washing machine. Okay. But what exactly is a physical property?
Well, physical properties are things like length, width, height, weight, actual having to do with actual physics and dimension.
Mm-hmm.
That's what physical properties are.
Yeah, I don't know what they would say, but this is usually a common objection. Like the idea is that length. So you're talking about extension, right? Length, width, height. That's extension.
Well, everything physical has physical properties such as length, width, height.
But that's not quite true. Motion has no extension. Gravity has no extension.
Well, motion is a physical property.
Right, but it has no extension.
Extension? What do you mean extension?
What's the length of gravity, the width of gravity, the height of gravity? It seems perfectly fine to say what's the length of the ball or the width of the ball, the diameter of the ball, but those sorts of terms don't apply to gravity. But most people want to say that gravity is physical.
Well, gravity is a physical property of matter in motion.
Well, there you go. But you see, the way that you defined a physical property initially was in terms of extension. And I'm saying
Yeah, all right. I should have been more specific. All right, physical property of matter, static matter. It's not the same properties per se as matter in motion.
Yeah, well, I'm not. I mean, I don't really.
You take into things like momentum and stuff like that.
There's just a lot of things, though, that like energy does that have extension? You might think the energy is matter. Maybe you don't. It doesn't really matter. The point is that this is a classical objection to property dualists. Is that, hey, I understand what physical objects are. I don't know what physical properties are. That's vague to me. So I don't really know what you're talking about. But to the property dualist. But it's still. I mean, a lot of these are like non-reductive physicalism, property dualism. These are people that recognize problems with these other views, and they try to get clever. And it is clever, but then you always can find some kind of like issue.
Well, like property dualism, I think that they're completely avoiding, physics. Then,
maybe.
What do you mean?
The entire study of physics. I mean, if they're saying that they don't understand what physical properties are, then they have never studied physics.
Well, I don't think that's true. I think.
Well, it might not be true, but that's what they're portraying themselves as being if they're saying they don't understand physics.
I think the objection is not that. Well, one of the objections is that that it's hard to express what we mean when we pick out a physical object or property, right? And that's a loose objection, but the idea is that it seems very demonstrative. Like it's not something that we can just like define like bachelor or triangle.
It's less than existing, right? I mean, what's a common way that physical would be just the idea of physical, something being physical?
Yeah, well, that's a big topic in
Well,
metaphysics, and
plus it differs, right? Like if there's a tetrahedron sitting on a kitchen table, it's going to have different physical properties than a cube sitting on a table. You know, so those properties are different, those physical properties of each object.
yeah, I guess I just wanted to say that, okay, physical property versus physical object, they have to do work to distinguish those. So they might figure it out. I don't know, but the point is that people are asking them to differentiate these in a kind of clear and concise way. And then the second question that Jamie asked is, what the heck is physical in the first place? So there are a lot of people that say that mind is brain. I just don't know. And then they say, but I don't know what the heck physical means, right? Like, I just think that mind is brain. So they don't identify as physicalist or naturalist. They don't really know how to express physical properties or objects. But they understand that mind is brain or something like that. That's actually kind of common. And then there's epiphenomenal. What were you saying, Jamie?
Yeah, please describe the next one. But that's where I kind of get stuck is, because I do want to emphasize that the physicalism is based theologically, and I think it's supported. Like Chris made a great case for it, I thought today, like a basic case for it in the sense of, how you can utilize, some scientific knowledge to undergird the theological position and what the Bible's saying, let's say. But then whenever property dualism comes up, I kind of feel like in the sense where mind is not merely identical to the brain, I'm obviously going to say that that's true, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So
you're saying you're expressing a little sympathy for property dualism? Is that kind of?
Yeah, because I think mind is. Maybe help me if I'm missing anything.
You want to say that mental states are properties of brain states, but they're non-physical. And the brain is physical,
yeah,
but has non-physical properties, which is to say that you can still say your mental state is of your brain.
Right, but then at the same time, I want to say I believe in, like God doesn't have a physical brain, but he has a mind, obviously. So.
Yeah, there might be a different substance or object with those same non-physical properties.
Yeah, right. And so people make fun of like that one guy.
Hey, Danny, you mean like blood type? Like my blood type might be different than your blood type, then might be different than Jamie's blood type.
Maybe something like that. Yeah.
That analogously, I would say it's more like I'm saying. In a sense, yeah, because to deal with like the nature of God's mind and how that manifests, or let's say, or like saying like a non-physical being with a mind, like an angel, like I've been contemplating, like, is it really ridiculous to like think maybe like if you're thinking theologically, like to posit some idea like an angel having some kind of substance. That's not.
What about Jamie? What about the angel at Sodom and Gomorrah, who stood in the doorway of Lot's house and blinded the eyes of those people that wanted to rape him?
Well, yeah, it's like that's the question. It's like the Bible does say the angels are non-physical yet, or maybe that's debatable. But at the same time, they seem to have to become physical agents when they interact with people in any meaningful way. But yeah,
yeah, you should, Jamie. You should totally dunk on your dualist friends with property dualism, like your substance dualist. That'd be hilarious. Yeah, I think that mental states are properties of the brain. I think brain is physical, but it could be that those mental properties that comprise of the object of brain are non-physical. And then what are they going to say? What are they going to say?
Well, yeah, that's kind of what I think. I like.
And you avoid soul because here soul comes in here, right? Soul seems like substances to me imply soul, but property dualists they never talk about souls.
Yeah. like it talks like let's put. I kind of want to talk about some. I want you to explain epiphenomenalism, but
Yeah, go on with that one, dude.
go ahead. Yeah, I'll let me formulate some things I'm to ask you, but I kind of want to hear your reaction to some of the theological disputes or whatever.
Yeah, I'll try. Epiphenomenalism is just as crazy as eliminativism. Did I tell you what eliminativism was?
Why don't you start with that one, Danny?
No, I've never heard of that one. So
Okay, so that's a kind of non-reductive physicalism. It's a weird kind. It's actually it's just somehow a little bit popular, which is crazy to me. But so remember, non-reductive physicalists are saying there's no identity between mind and brain, right? The eliminativist says, okay, yeah, there is no identity between mind and brain because there's no mind. There's no mental. So this stuff that you're calling beliefs and quality and pain and desire, those things don't exist.
Yeah, that don't make sense.
I don't even know how to. I don't even know what that means. I guess.
Well, like they would say this, right? Like, hey, when you say, "Are you happy right now, Jamie?"
Yeah.
No. You have certain levels of serotonin. That's how an eliminative thinks of these things, right? That we should drop our language of folk psychology and replace it with purely naturalistic neuroscientific terms.
Kind of sounds like reductive physicalism in a way.
Well, but you see, reductive physicalism is acknowledging that their beliefs and those are identical.
Oh, it's okay. I got you.
Right? Yeah, but the eliminative is saying there are no beliefs. Right? So in a weird sense, it's not reductive because they're not reducing anything; they're eliminating.
Well, that reminds me like Spock on Star Trek or something.
Yeah, so if, like, for instance, people are reductive about water. Water is reduced to H2O. If you're an eliminativist about water, you're going to say there is no water. There's just H2O.
Well, water has minerals in it sometimes.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's a different issue. But
that reminds me of. Well, never mind. Go ahead, Danny.
Yeah, and epiphenomenalism is kind of just as crazy to me. Mental states are caused, but they never cause anything. They are causally inert. So once they are the effect, they will remain an effect and never be a cause. Nietzsche really thought of ourselves as this way.
Sounds like trying to acknowledge reality, but only so far or something. I don't know.
There's a really good example of this, I think. And do you have a kid or do you have a little?
I have. No,
okay.
I have my own, but yeah.
Okay, so sometimes they're really annoying when you're trying to play video games. What do they try to do? They want to play with you, right? And so what some people do is they give them a controller that's not working, right? And they take the controller and they look at the screen and they press all the buttons of the controller and things happen on the screen, right? And what do they think? They think that their desires are causally affecting the screen. But it's not.
Isn't that cute?
So epiphenomenalists think that this is happening with every single one of our beliefs and desires, not just in those cases.
Sounds Nietzsche. Sounds
Nietzsche. Yeah, Nietzsche used a kind of a little story of a wave who claims that the wave is saying, "I will that I turn over, right? That I move forward, right?" When really he's just part of this kind of physical reality that doesn't care about what the wave wills.
Sounds like a someone who maybe was a hedonist that got burned out or something. You know, I mean, yeah, okay,
yeah. But anyways, yeah, I think these are the main views of philosophy of mind stuff, right? I'm not so much metaphysics. There's more stuff, but in terms of phil of mind, pretty much anyone you meet will fit into one of these categories.
But so let's ask the question: in just the philosophical general terms, how would you categorize a Christian physicalist? Why are they making that?
Oh, that's hard to say. It depends. I mean, I don't think I don't know. I mean, Chris Date says he's a non-reductive physicalist, but when I was a Christian, I think I was some kind of reductive physicalist. I just thought there was soul over and above everything. It's just I thought it made sense that like my belief was in my head, in my brain.
Okay,
but yeah, I don't think there's. I don't know anything about the history about what most Christians accept that are most Christian physicalists. I don't know.
Yeah, I need to read some more about my tradition and what the philosophers think in the.
I think Peter Van Inwagen is reductive. I think he's reductive.
So I suppose he has. He's a reductive. You think?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Why do you think Chris is a non-reductive? What do you think?
He said it in his interview.
No, yeah, I know he is. I just wonder what the main reason he would.
Not accept identity.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know why. Well, I think there's just. It's kind of. There's so many problems with this view. I think one of. Well, the idea is it's like. There are so many problems with this view that people go to this view to avoid those similar problems, but then they get into gibberish land.
Yeah.
And gibberish land is at least not prima facie or at a glance incoherent. So I think he might recognize problems with this and then just go to this.
See, now I would have thought that reductive physicalism almost necessitates having a sort of naturalism, and that's probably my own.
Yeah, I mean, you might be a physicalist and be like a Platonist. Like, remember, this is just a fill of mind.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, sometimes physicalism is that when say they're a physicalist, they might just say, "Hey, I'm a physicalist about the mind," but there could be, non-physical properties that are independent of mind.
Right. Well, I mean, it's what this is mainly theological for me, but I'm trying to learn more about, the problem.
You should learn these views. That way you can better fit, what fits with your interpretation, right?
Yeah, and I want to be like, I kind of have a general idea of like some of it, but like I keep wanting to say, well, when you say it's just those are categories under philosophy of mind, but like I keep thinking, well, I believe in the reality of non-physical minds. So is that how do you parse that out? I guess is hard.
I mean, so. I mean, I think that something like you should look into property dualism, probably. Property dualism, you're saying that mental properties are properties of the brain, right? You're licensed to that claim, and the brain is physical. But on your view, on their view, just because the brain is physical as an object doesn't necessitate that the properties that make up the brain are all physical. Otherwise, that would be something called the fallacy of division.
Okay.
Do you know what the fallacy of composition is?
Like
it's very simple. The chair is made of atoms. Atoms are small, therefore the chair is small.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, in the same way that the fallacy of division is saying the chair is big, atoms make up the chair, therefore the atoms are big.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So, the idea is there that you can say that a brain is physical, but it doesn't necessitate that all the properties of the brain are physical.
Right. Okay. Yeah. That's what I think that's right.
Something like that. But and you're avoiding, your interpretation of soul is compatible with this as well.
Yeah, it seems. Yeah, maybe so. I think so.
So maybe, find some literature on property dualism, and see if it works out for you.
It's just like, I think I do think it seems to me that Scripture says our conscious mind is totally dependent on the well, maybe not, I guess, the physical brain in the sense. So it's kind of like,
You see, but when people say that, that's compatible on either view, right? You know, that's the thing is that, okay, I can grant us the whole question is, what is the being of mentality? What's the nature of mentality?
I guess I've just had it driven in my head that the debate is between dualism and monism, but maybe that's not the case in what I'm defending. I guess I'm just been wrong about that.
Yeah, I mean, is because like this, you could take your interpretations of because look, my problem with like substance dualism is that soul and spirit. Okay, so like here's the problem. I don't understand what a lot of these people are saying. So soul, what is that supposed to be? Well, they want to say that soul is an immaterial substance, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now there's mind, okay, but then they also say that soul equals you or your identity. This is the problem. Mind is material. So I don't understand this because I think on my view, mind, this is where on my view, mind on Danny's view, so I don't get confused. Or no one gets confused. It's mind that establishes identity.
Well, I would say that your mind is your compilation of decisions.
No, I don't think so. I think it's more than that.
Well, it is more than that, but I mean, it can be, comparative to your compilation of decisions.
I just take it I just define it point of view.
Or a point of view for sure. Like for example, to make up your mind about something.
Yeah, I just take mind to be a point of view, which is to include all of your views, all your beliefs and desires.
Right.
But the thing,
the totality of it.
The thing, if I took away all of your beliefs and desires, there just wouldn't be you. But
right.
Apparently, on substance dualism, there's something left over, the soul. So what's left over exactly?
Yeah.
So one view that I thought would work was soul makes mind possible. But then suddenly, that looks like what? Brain makes mind possible. That's what the physicalists are saying.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm kind of caught in between there because, like, theologically, everybody's going to say, most people say, go ahead.
Do you guys believe that there's a difference between a living soul and a dead soul?
I think that might be relating to some theological concept rather than some biological concept.
I think there's
philosophy.
Everybody believes that. I mean, theologically, I would say. I would just say that the confusion that I'm fighting against is the idea that what does it mean when the Bible talks about, there's dead people in Christ, the dead in Christ, and then, but the person, I'm just going to say dualist for now, or the person who believes in that dead people are conscious, let's say. I don't think dead people are conscious. Let's put it that way. And so a dead soul would be like saying a dead living person. And then to say a living soul, I would just say it's kind of like a thing to say. I think
there could be, I don't mind. I mean, I would just be fine with equivocation there. Like there's sometimes soul might mean the condition of your salvation and your relationship with God. And then sometimes soul means something different. Like you're talking about your living condition, right? Your breath, right?
That's definitely in Scripture.
What if I were to tell you that there's a difference between a living soul, a dead soul, and a non-living soul?
Yeah, that's up to the theologian. I don't really.
That's mixing. I think that's mixing the different concepts, like Danny was just describing.
No, not at all, because it says that God formed Adam of the dust of the earth and then breathed into him, and Adam became a living soul at that point.
Yeah.
So prior to that, he was a non-living soul if the soul has something to do with the physical body.
Anyway,
Go ahead.
with this, let me get this in. Oops. So the problem here is that the physicalist brain makes mind possible. That necessity relation has to do with laws of nature. All right, so they can say if we were to ask a physicalist, okay, why is it that brain makes mind possible? Well, there are laws of nature that necessitate a brain state to a mind state. But when soul makes mind possible, so here the idea is that where there's mind, there's brain, given some kind of law of nature, laws of physics, whatever, and that if you couldn't have a mind with no brain in virtue of those laws. It's logically possible, though, that you could have mind without brain, but we don't care about logical possibility. We're talking about physical possibility. But over here, because soul is immaterial, right? They can't appeal to laws of nature. So what are they appealing to say that where there's mind, there's soul? And that's a conundrum from here. This necessity relation, what's it grounded in? Maybe grounded in God's will, but then how is that? Couldn't God have just changed his mind in terms of what makes mind possible? So it's just kind of strange,
Is God borrowing from his own existence is a necessity to make other minds, whether they're dependent on a physical property?
Yeah, I just find I take so many issues with soul and substance that I think that's why I'm a kind of property dualist, but not this. This is I did say it's a little vague. Most property dualists are going to say this. I'm not going to exactly say this. I just don't think. I just reject substance because I can't make sense of this.
Well, yeah, maybe we can parse out some of the. I'm really trying. Is what I'm really desiring is to. I'm gonna base my view is gonna be based on scripture, at least at this point.
Yeah,
and I want to look at the different views, and this is what
I get that
about it, and then people get so worked up about it, and they're just want to posture and stuff. And I just want to talk about I would like to look at where I agree with them and where I in honesty, and where what's coherent and what isn't, and why, and what makes. I want to have the most coherent picture of what scripture says is my goal.
Yeah, I will say that substance, they posit other things, not just soul. Essence, they posit something. Sometimes they bear particulars.
Form.
Form. Yeah, essence and form might be. Form is even more vague than all of this, but because the continental philosophers have hijacked that word. But bare particulars are basically entities that ground properties. So, for example, properties of an apple,
like chairness,
kind of like the idea is that the properties in apples are held by bare particulars.
I've heard some really pedantic conversations regarding this stuff too, and
it gets that way. But the idea is that if you strip away all on substance dualism, because you accept substance theory, if you strip away all the properties of an apple, you're going to have a bare particular left over.
Yeah, what could that be?
Well, that's my problem, because how is that different from nothing?
Yeah, that's one thing. I'm trying to find something to toe hold onto here, and I can't.
Yeah, because I mean that's what nothing means, is that there are no properties.
Yeah, to have no properties is to not exist.
Exactly, which is why I don't get this, man. I don't get it. So I think that philosophically, property dualism is probably stronger
The Mormons are right. God has a body. Calling it a day. No, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know, but I hope this somewhat helps. You could still go the non-reductive stuff and think that there's necessitation between mind and brain in a way where it's not cause effect and it's not identity. And you can appeal to supervenience, and then you're gonna get an objection from someone like me, but you're not gonna get an objection from any of your friends. And the thing is that like anyone, no matter what view, there are going to be objections.
Right.
So just take the one with the least number of problems, and that works for your interpretation of scripture. It seems like if your interpretation of soul, I think, is really, you're avoiding a lot of issues, I think, and that I like that. I think that if you're to take that interpretation of soul, that fits with property dualism, and that works for physicalism.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I'm being honest. I get told I'm not all the time, but I think that just makes the most sense, because if scripture says, let's see, I have an issue with adding too much extra that's not actually there, because then if I'm just trying to be honest here, I have an issue with you could say, the Protestant perspective on the Bible, which I take seriously. And so if you have to add all these ideas that aren't existing in the text, and then you consider the cultural context of the time, like especially the Old Testament was written, and what the other cultures were saying surrounding the Hebrews, you could say this was dishonest in one level, especially if you were a non-believer, maybe, I guess. But for other reasons, I take the Bible seriously. So I have this issue with, and people try to use this argument to support dualism by saying, well, the ancient Near East, all the surrounding cultures had these dualistic ideas. And I'm going, that's why I don't think it's true, because the Bible doesn't seem to know anything about it contemporarily, when it was contemporaneous in that culture.
Oh, I see. Yeah, because substance dualism, that didn't come around. I mean, one of the most famous substance dualists that really popularized it was Descartes, and that was 1600s.
Yeah, and I mean, just certain concepts about the nature. I mean, it kind of, the soul sleep kind of maybe encompasses the differences in the cultural context of the Old Testament. But the Hebrews seem to have no idea about dualist properties of the human, and so they just talked about dying and not being alive anymore, and no longer being conscious. And so, but the ancient Near culture talked about flying away like a bird, and like all this. But then it gets difficult, because the New Testament uses terms and often borrows from the surrounding culture, which has similar ideas, the Greek ideas and stuff. And it has an issue with taken from that. And so that kind of, I think, is confusing for people, but I just can't say all these cultures had these ideas and then the Bible finally got it right.
Jamie,
Go
it's
ahead.
mentioned in the Old Testament that, through the lifespans of the people, at the end of their life, it's written in the Old Testament that they gave up the ghost.
Yeah, I would say that is so that is an English rendering of, which is probably skewed in a sense. There's baggage with the way. I don't have a problem with saying giving up the ghost, but that's like an interpretive. When you look at the original language, it's they gave up the breath. The word for breath and spirit are the same word in Hebrew and essentially in Greek too. If you look at the Septuagint, which translated the Old Testament into Greek, hundreds of years before the New Testament, the words that are used for spirit or breath are translated pneuma, which is clearly related to air. And that's the idea, the breath of life. That all, in my mind, that's all coming from Genesis, right? And but I'm not going to deny that this idea of spirit in Scripture, which pneuma, breath, it's like the life-giving essence of your person. And so, if you want to call that dualism, fine. But I'm saying you're not a living creature until you have the life-giving essence or force in the body, which is physical. So I tend
Yeah,
to
it
think,
seems like that rendition is compatible with either dualism or physicalism. Because look, if I define soul as what makes mind possible, what makes life possible, well, the physicalists would say, well, that's brain. So soul is just life, brain, whatever. But yeah, I don't know. I think that interesting that you came across this interpretation on purely exegetical grounds.
yeah, that is true. I'm more like wanting to learn about the philosophy, because there's places where it doesn't line up perfectly, because I also would want to say I kind of formulate, which may be silly in a way, but I formulate, the Genesis, the when God's making man, like the literal. Almost everybody will take that literally, even if they don't take Genesis literally, in the sense of God forming man. It's like you take the two things, and he's not alive until the two are together. So I look at it like these two together, that being the body. There is no person when he just makes this body, and then he puts this breath into it, which isn't conscious before it goes into the body. And when those two are combined, you get the living soul, or the soul thing. And the language for how it describes animals being created are identical. And Chris kind of went over that. It's like, so in other words, you take that spirit or breath of life out of the body, you no longer have a living creature. And it seems to me, not being alive, just like Adam wasn't alive before those two things were put together, he's not alive when they come apart. And there's so many reasons to think the Bible is saying that. But then you still have these two parts, right? So is that dualism? It seems like it's dualistic monism or something. You know what I mean?
I kind of see what you're saying there.
So people, so when I'm discussing it with somebody who's like a classical, more classical dualist, it kind of isn't identical. I don't know. There's
the soul. The soul and the spirit or the mind.
That's why.
Yeah, I don't think they can make that identity relation. Given this argument right here, right? The idea is that mind is a point of view where it includes all of your beliefs and desires. If you have no beliefs and desires, there's no you. But then they want to say soul is essentially your identity.
Yeah, because Smokey and Kenny, who's a philosopher, obviously. He like Kenny will kind of be a little more sympathetic to my view, and so he says I forget what he said, but it was like he's like, I'm kind of a monist in one sense, because they acknowledge that thing with Genesis, and even Smokey he'll say yeah, man becomes a soul, and he emphasizes that, but then he'll say, but once, and same with Kenny, is they kind of say, well, once you have the soul, it's kind of like, then they'll appeal to like Aquinas and like say you now have like once the what am I going to say, the form is made, it exists eternally kind of thing or something, and then they appeal to like Aquinas's ideas, and so they'll then they want to say, well, yeah, you are a soul, and at least I take it this way, you are a soul, but in a sense you have a soul, and like I don't necessarily disagree with that, but then that's where it gets kind of fishy. I don't know. Sorry, I don't know if it makes sense or matters.
I think that makes sense to me. I think your concerns make sense to me philosophically. I think that this argument is something that you should pose against them.
Yeah, why don't you go over that again?
Yeah, that the idea is that they want to say soul is you or your identity. That, first of all, this is a different claim versus this. Right? The idea is that if soul makes mind possible, ask them, okay, so, you can substitute, then soul could be God or soul could be brain, right? What exactly differentiates soul from God or brain? What's the distinguishing property? And I don't think they're going to give an answer. I don't know what answer they could give.
So when they say you become a soul, they acknowledge that, but then they want to sit on the idea that you have a soul more than like in a sense.
Yeah, because on your interpretation, it makes sense, right? That what it means to be given a soul is to be given life, the breath, right? Then end of story, right? But then on their view, you've been given life, you've been given there you could have a mind without a soul, but instead you now have life, mind, plus this extra thing, soul.
Right.
And what is that, right?
Yeah. It's not there in scripture is what I'm saying. It's not.
And it's vague philosophic. It's philosophically vague.
Yeah, I think Aquinas tries, to make a case and build all these ideas, and
They try to tie it with essence.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I need to learn more about it, but this has been very helpful.
I hope it has.
Yeah, it's definitely a starting point to kind of branch out and try to I've been talking to Kenny a little bit. We started to talk about it, but I know he's talking to Chris too, and I'm hoping to get them both on at the same time. I'd love to have you there too.
If it works out, yeah, that'd be fun. That's how I look at this.
I'll try to plan it ahead or something, and then you can help me prepare to give some. Maybe you can help me prepare to give some good questions.
Yeah, well, I'll give you some questions. Well, we'll go over some questions we want to think about. Maybe a couple of arguments. Maybe that might be troublesome, but anyways, I'm gonna take my leave here. I might be back later in some random stream though.
Yeah, I'm gonna eat some dinner, so I'm gonna cut it off too. And but if you're anybody listening, just share the page. We're gonna get into more theological stuff, and I'm gonna try to include people who want to join most of the time. So thanks for coming in, everybody, and we'll look for my live streams if you're interested. And if you have any subjects you want to talk about, you can send me an email, and I'll put it in the link.
All right, bye guys.
Bye,
All right,
Dan.
take care, you guys.
Have we talked before, Arctic Timberwolf?
Not verbally like this.
I feel like I've seen you. I see you around all the time, or some variation of that name.
We may have chatted in the different live chats and stuff like that. Sure.
What kind of
I
channel?
don't think anybody else on YouTube has the same call sign as me, though.
Who's it? What's that?
I do not believe anybody else on YouTube has the same call sign as me.
Yeah, maybe, I think I've seen you. What other Christian channels do you?
I'm all over the place. I've been on YouTube since 2008, man. So it's kind of hard to keep track of all the different places I've been. I talk to people all across the world out here.
Hi, Janet. Hi, Cheryl. Anybody else who's out there, if you're still there. This is like my first actual live stream that wasn't a test, so I'm trying to follow what people are saying and follow who I'm talking to, and it's kind of difficult.
Okay.
But if I sounded rude earlier, I didn't mean to. I wanted to hear what you were saying. I just me and Danny have been talking for a while, and so there was some things I'm trying to get better understanding on. But hey, man, I'll talk to you later.
All right. Thanks a lot, Jamie.
You bet.
Bye-bye.